Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alison, the online piano and the online violin tutor. Now this is taken from my 1 to 30 violin course, specifically book 2, which guarantees to take you from a complete beginner to a very decent, accomplished intermediate violinist. More information on this amazing course will be directly underneath this video, especially if you're thinking of starting the violin or you're looking for a good online course to teach you. So note values was something that I decided not to touch upon in my lessons 1 to 10, as I felt there were much more higher priority things that needed to be taught in lessons 1 to 10. I feel that it's more important to actually learn to play the violin than to really decipher what it is that you're doing on the music, because then you end up focusing too much on what the music is doing and not enough on the playing. By the time you get to a certain level, it's very difficult to then undo any bad habits. So I always feel that it's important to just get going on the violin first, playing first or practical first. Theory can come later. So let's look at the picture that you'll see up on the screen, and there are 5 different types of notes which looks like all of these. Now you'll notice that the first 3 have what we call a stem coming out of them, and the last one is just sort of a round circle. I'm going to go into what those are in just a second, and if we look at the notes underneath that, we can see there are sort of 2 of them beamed together, and we've got some where the notes are at the bottom and the stem is coming up, and some where they look upside down. So the first ones look like D's and the other ones look like P's, so they kind of look upside down. They're exactly the same note. It doesn't really matter whether a note is looking like a D or the note is looking like a P. That just determines the position that it sits actually on the sheet music, and that is going to be discussed in another video. But suffice to say, all of the notes are exactly the same. So when you are actually looking at some sheet music, as long as they physically look the same, i.e. a black coloured in note with a stem, or a black note that isn't coloured in the middle with a stem, a black note that isn't coloured in that has a dot next to it, as long as they all look like that, it doesn't matter whether where they look like D's where the stem is coming up, or they look like P's where the stem is coming down, the note is still exactly the same thing. So the notes on the bottom row, they are all exactly the same note. They're actually called quavers, or they're called eighth notes, and they're all the same note, but they can just look a little bit different. So the first 2 that you can see are grouped together. They look like D's, and that's if the note is lower down on the music. The next one, they look like P's, and that's if the notes are higher up, but they're all exactly the same note. So we've got 2 quavers or 2 eighth notes, and then another 2 quavers and another 2 eighth notes. Quaver, by the way, is the UK name for it. Eighth note is more of the US version. Either or, really doesn't matter. Both are correct. And then if you look at the last 2, that's what they look like individually. So the first 2 are what the quavers or the eighth notes look like when there's 2 in a row, either low down on the music or high up on the music. And the next 2 are just what they look like individually. So the notes above that, because they don't have little tails on them, it doesn't matter if you have more than one of them in a row. We don't join them or beam them together like we do with the quavers or the eighth notes. So now if you look at the table, you can see the 5 different note types, and you can see the US name, the UK name, and the number of beats that it is worth. And again, it doesn't really matter whether you call it by the US name or the UK name. I obviously call it by the UK because I'm British and I always have done. But either or, it really doesn't matter. It's completely up to you. As long as you can recognise what the note looks like and how many beats it's worth, quite honestly, it doesn't really matter what it's called. You don't ever look at a piece of music and think quaver, quaver, crotchet, minim, quaver, quaver. That doesn't work that way. You're just going to be looking at that and thinking, okay, that's worth 1 beat, that's worth 2 beats, I've got to hold it for 3 beats, whatever it is that the music is telling you to do. So this chart here is now worth bearing in mind and worth remembering, because you will need to know how many beats each of those is worth. In the previous video, part 1 of this was all about time signatures. So if you haven't watched that, do go ahead and watch that, because you'll need to know that. Then you'll need to know the information in this video, and then the next video that's coming up is about bar lines. Those 3 videos amalgamated together are going to really help you decipher what you're looking at when you look at a piece of sheet music. So with my 1 to 30 violin course, the first 10 lessons are absolutely free, and in there you will learn how to read the music. You'll be able to recognize the notes, where they are on the sheet music, and where they are associated on the violin. The only thing you won't be able to do in lessons 1 to 10 is figure out how many beats each of those notes are worth and how the beats work in with the music and really what you're looking at. So you need that along with this part here. But also this is covered in lesson 12 in my 1 to 30 violin course anyway. So don't forget to check out my previous video on time signatures, and then the next video coming up will be all about bar lines. So thank you very much for watching. Head underneath the video to check out all the links to everything I've mentioned in this video, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye.